Um, Thank you very much for the invitation and the logistics and hospitality arrangements. And thank you, madam, for the kind words. I'm trying to do something as a geologist, as a trained geologist. Sometime in my career, I have exposed to kind of questions from my colleague. He's a prehistoric archaeologist. Really excited me. And those questions. And then I realized that it is not so easy to answer those questions. I have to do a lot of work. And that happened to move on. And I started working more and more to find out some of the answers to his questions. And this started somewhere around in 2015. Since then, we are working with Dr. Parth, very close to the questions what he asked to me. And then slowly we started building a small team. And it took us almost 8 years now to come up with some of the evidences from the region. And today, what I am trying to tell actually matches with the title of the conference, that's an overview of what we are doing and what we have done till today. And we have some information at this moment, and we have a lot of work to do in the future. So that is what I am going to try to express today. And the first instance, these are the questions Dr. Parth asked me that all of you will be very aware about because all of you are from archaeology background. So these are the basic questions that most of the archaeology prehistorians would be having in their mind. Who came first, when did they come, how they interacted with the existing community, what was the environment during that period, many such fundamental questions in archaeology. And when I asked these questions to myself as a geologist, then I think, okay, if I get an information of all the sites, existing sites in India, and if you tell me that, okay, this is how the cultural sequences in this part, and then as a geologist, I can put the environmental things like the climatic signatures, understand things, then I can correlate these things. And then I will be able to make the story very simple that, okay, this is how the culture evolved due to the climatic scenario. And this is what I thought somewhere 10 years back when I exposed to this kind of questions. And I got that information too. So Parth actually gave me a list of sites which are dated, which has some evidences of culture, tools, and how they used, and what is the function. I learned some of this archaeology from my friends. And then I asked, okay, this is very quite low number of data set to interpret it in a regional level in Indian context. Then he did a lot of work again, and then he came up with a lot of data sets, like a lot of sites, all reported sites. And then I started looking into this data set and started analyzing it. Okay, that is what is the pattern of this exposed or collected informations or the reported sites. As Sheila ma'am rightly said, that the evidence what you are getting from the surface, that doesn't mean that it is exposed in that area for the last 1 million years. It is somehow geologically controlled because the area which is eroding is somehow controlled by the human activities. But some places it is originally existed during that period of time, but most of the evidences what you are getting today are from the secondary context. They are not from the primary context, and we are very few evidences which are excavated and studied. So I found that it is not very apt to interpret this data at this moment to regionally understand the thing. But I did some exercise, like what I did, very simple thing. I consider that, okay, even though this is the sites, it doesn't mean that if I get one site here and if I get another site in 100 kilometer or 50 kilometer, it doesn't mean these are different populations, as Sheila rightly said. It may be a population that they were moving around. So what I did, a small exercise, I considered that from the literature I found that the prehistoric human, they were having an extent of around 20 kilometers to move around from their basic locality. So I just considered as a fancy number, 20 kilometer. And took all these sites independently and analyzed that, okay, how many clusters I can make out of it. Okay, considering a 20 kilometer of activity by each site. Then that fancy image that got into some interesting picture, like something like this. And at this moment I was so excited, and I drew all these lines that, okay, this is the migration of a prehistoric time and the things. And then I sent it to Parth, and he said, no, it is not. The primary data what you are having is of collected during a long duration of time. they are not very accurate in terms of latitude, longitude and things. We have to do a lot of things to come out with this. Then I hold, okay, let's see. But one thing which was very interesting from this analysis, that all these things when I am looking at it, there is some point, that square mark here, that there is something is converging there. There is something interesting in that part. All different periods, if I look at it. Then I looked into that area. What is that? As a geological point of view, I put the first thing, the geological map I collect, and I look at that part. What is that? Where is that converging point in that old data set? So that is our Tapi Basin. Then I looked into the geology of Tapi Basin. What is it important there? So if I look at the Tapi Basin, it is a basin which is located in the Deccan Trap. The entire region is Deccan Trap. We know the age, its last eruption was 64 million years. And then directly we have the youngest Quaternary, 2 million years, which is there in the basin. And it is almost a very beautiful closed system. By closed system, what I mean, that not many things coming into this. Like if I take the Gujarat alluvial plain, that everything is mixed. It comes from the Thar desert, it comes from the different rivers. You can even get sediments from the Himalayan derived sediments it can carry and come in. But Tapi is not like that. Tapi is so beautiful in that sense, it is very restricted with the boundaries. So then I realized that if we know more about Tapi, and if I can make up a data set for Tapi, and then it can be used to correlate with many of these human things. So that is the point around in 2017-18, we decided that, okay, let us go for a detailed analysis of Tapi. And I have so many things to say why Tapi is important, because of the human partner side. You already mentioned that multicultural site, existence of human is very well preserved, and ostrich eggshells are reported. That is a very good indicator of climate. We can do a lot of things with ostrich eggshells. So many things. So I'm not going into that all points at this moment, but then what I did, again, as a geologist, I have a habit that come from all to the part, because we have to bifurcate ourselves into a smaller region. So then I took the Tapi Basin as a whole. Then I started looking into the entire geomorphological and geological setup of Tapi Basin during the Quaternary. And then I proposed, okay, let's see, or we concluded something like that. There are multiple layers of events. And one interesting fact, what it comes from that, there are layers like something like a yellowish silty sediment, and it is overlain by a typical fluvial sequence. So it was reported by Sali sir, and many reports are there. And these people were telling that is maybe an Aeolian silt. But as a geologist, when I see that an Aeolian silt deposited 7 meters and above which there is a fluvial sequence, that means there is a lot of change in the climatic conditions, that there is a sudden change. And I can see this silt in some places which are sandwiched between the colluvial wash. So colluvial wash is a high energy condition, and it is sandwiched with a low energy fine silty sediment. So environmental point of view, this is a lot of changes in that area. So then ultimately when I have to do a detailed study, the point is that I have to identify a location, one single location. It is not quite possible to do a lot of locations for this study. So after this regional exploration, I have come up to one single location which is very close to the village called Sakegaon. This is under the middle of the valley, and there I could find a very beautiful sequence, Sakegaon sequence I call it at this moment. And that I realized, okay, this is the sequence I have to study. And that sequence I came up with all India to the Maharashtra, then Tapi, then Sakegaon. So the representative section what I am producing from Tapi at this moment, I expect that it should have some level of correlation to the database what is available across the continent. Yeah, that is, again, we need to do a lot of work. But then I realized that to understand the actual climatic scenario from these sediments, I need to do all this different variety of analysis. Fundamentally, a few of them are basic geological analysis, some are advanced analysis. So I listed down all this analysis, and I started working on it. And when I have a habit of collecting samples at the maximum possible resolution. Even though I don't analyze all the samples, I keep it in my lab. But I collect samples always in the maximum possible resolution. It was a 14-meter section. So maximum possible possibility is 2 centimeters. So I collected the samples in 2 centimeters, around 700 samples I collected. And I started analyzing in lower resolution at this moment. All this 5 analysis showing on the the left-hand side, it is done right now. We are yet not published. We are still, as Madam rightly said, when you do work, you feel like, okay, you are getting something interesting, but you are not yet concluding the things. But we have good information at this moment. And it was not done by me alone. We had a team. And I could bring, in fact, me and Parth could bring all these people together into TAPI. Okay, so the people who are working with us at this moment, helping us in analysis, laboratory facilities, is all these people. And there is a list of people at the bottom. They are the people actually doing this work. Okay, so they are helping me because this is a huge data set. And I will quickly go through the data set. I'm not going into anything technical at this moment. Just go through the data set, what we are getting. So these are something like we come up with the section. We are able to divide it into 5 beautiful units in terms of its geological characteristics, and we are in position to understand that the evolution of this valley basin is something like this in a 5-stage process. Initially it was something like a barren land with Deccan Trap exposed, some amount of weathered things, and then later on something which brought these yellowish sediments into the system. And there the important question comes whether these yellowish sediments are derived from the Deccan Trap or it is carried by someone else. Because Deccan Trap derived yellowish sediments is quite a long geochemical process, because Deccan Trap is basically a dark colored. It produces black cotton soil, sticky clay material. That is not directly possible to convert into a silty, clayey, yellowish color sediments. And even if it made somewhere in the past, then that may be a different geological or a climatic condition. So then ultimately we come up with something interesting at this moment. We realized that we did a microstructure analysis. We did around 450 quartz grains from the this yellowish sediment silts, and then we studied it under a scanning electron microscope and observed the microstructural features, because different medium of transport like the fluvial or an aeolian transportation make different textures on the surface. And at this moment we know that these sediments are transported by aeolian, but some imprints of fluvial. That means the water is also there. It is not, we are not completely removing the availability of water. But yeah, so the lower thing is aeolian. It is influenced by aeolian and reworked by some amount of water, and then there is a complete change in the system. It is completely converting into a fluvial dominated, river dominated system and highly flooded. It's like we can see a 6 meters of fluvial deposits of gravels above this deposit, and basement is Deccan Trap. So there is no major chances of any tectonic at this moment. And then finally, this is what at this moment we know about the climatic conditions, because there is a detailed isotopic analysis done in the sediments, stable isotopic composition of the soil organic matter and the carbonate percentage. So these two things I use for this plot. It basically actually what indicates then when there is a soil which is depositing, that soil will have some organic particle in it. So that soil organic particle actually have in balance with the then existing organic materials or the plants. So we can calculate based on the carbon and oxygen isotopic composition what is the percentage of this carbon and oxygen isotopes, and whether it was a C3 or C4 plant. That is one parameter. Second, this sediment after depositing there, it undergoes a process of diagenesis, process of formation of carbonates in it, and this process of formation of carbonate is actually in correlation with the existing or the time passing through and the availability of material. So there is a mass balance equation between this. So I took these two parameters. One is the soil organic matter isotopic ratio. Second is this time frame, the percentage of carbonate which is producing in it. So that actually bifurcate this system into 5 important units. And then I have a detailed look into the characteristics of this isotopic data. Then it realized that the sediment, the area, initially it was a the lower unit, the lowermost part when it was depositing, it was a big forest kind of environment, but the sediment is same. Changed to a different savanna kind of environment, but the sediment is same. So there is no major influence of sediment, but the environment got changed. And then it has changed to a mixed environment as we are observing today. So it took 5 stages to come to this stage, come to this place. Now this is what a geological understanding what I am having in terms of this environment. Now along with that, there is one more thing what you have done. We got the evidences of ostrich shells from this part. And then we find out that what is the age of this ostrich eggshell, what is the isotopic composition. Because now I know from the soil I know some parameter, and ostrich eggshells also I have some parameters. So this is exactly now correlating. But as of today, I don't have a chronological control on these sediments. We are still waiting for the OSL dates. So when we get the OSL date, then we will be able to tie line between these things, like the ostrich eggshells, the climatic conditions, and then the human is our next target. Because we have more than 250 sites from here. We have to reanalyze all this sediment, because when the climate is changing, environment is changing, human has to change. So that has to be reflected in their tools. So when we get this reference from the valley, which is a representative of the entire valley, then we will be able to do these tie lines. It will take at least next of the couple of years, and that is how I started thinking more into this, because we need more people to come to this kind of detailed scientific analysis. More archaeology students should come to this field, and we have to train them. And we both together have recently started a new initiative. We call it as PaleoHER, Paleoclimate Ecology and Heritage Research Foundation. It is a registered Session 8 company, and we are planning to enhance the activities under this leadership and under this organization to attract more and more students into archaeology students into this, and spread awareness about this kind of research and importance to the geology peoples. So ultimately we think that in the down the line from 20 years from now, we'll have a very good team. There would be different valleys uniformly studying. Okay, that uniformity will bring our understanding more better, and we'll be able to interpret much better than what we are doing today in terms of human and the climate. Thank you.
Good with the time. But did you find ostrich eggshell from more than one horizon?
The ostrich eggshells what we got right now, we got 2. Both of them were from the surface, not from the section.
Okay, not from the section.
Yeah.
Okay.
But both are dated, so age we know, but we do not know exact correlation with the section right now.
Okay.
But we hope that one day we'll
They'll be independently dated.
Yeah, independently dated.
Okay, like if anyone has a question, one question from anyone.